On the day of the accident, I had just informed my wife about the gender of our baby. It was heartbreaking to hear it from her obstetrician during a prenatal checkup, but I wish I had heard it from her. Even though we talked, she lay motionless, not saying a word. I've been living like a slacker since losing my wife and our baby. I just wish I could join them soon. My name is Moon, and I'm 32 years old. 2 years ago, I lost my pregnant wife, Jennifer, and our unborn child in a car accident. They were on their way back from the maternity clinic. I used to accompany her to every prenatal checkup, but that day I couldn't get off work, so she went alone. By the time I reached the hospital, it was too late. Jennifer wasn't breathing anymore. She had many injuries on her face and body, so unlike how she looked when we parted ways in the morning. I held Jennifer's hand, noticing it was more bruised. The hospital staff told me it seemed she was trying to protect her belly, which explained the injuries. I couldn't stop crying after hearing that. She had said just the other day, "Moon, can I truly become a good mom?" I told her she was already amazing. Jennifer put our child's life before her own, showing her kindness and strength. The hospital where Jennifer and our baby were taken was also where she had her prenatal checkups. As I grieved next to my wife and child, our doctor came over. His eyes, usually filled with smiles, were now red and teary. "I had just told your wife about the gender of the baby today. It's truly heartbreaking." "It was a boy," he said before leaving. I knelt beside Jennifer, murmuring, "I wish I could have seen you hold him." My words echoed faintly, deepening my loneliness. Consumed by grief, I couldn't sleep at night and drowned my sorrows in alcohol. Though I went to work, I was demotivated and just went through the motions. After 2 years, a slight change occurred in my routine. On my days off, instead of staying home, I started visiting the park. There, I often saw a mother and her son, Emily and Jake. I got to know them when Jake, who was 4, hurt himself, and I helped treat his wound. The park is between my apartment and the supermarket, so I'd see them often. Emily and I began talking, but it wasn't the only reason I started talking to her. She reminded me of my late wife, although their personalities were different. Emily is energetic and a single mother, while my late wife was reserved and quiet. Jake, however, resembles my late wife more. He's shy and introverted. I have never told Emily or Jake about this because it would be awkward to say they'd remind me of my late wife. Today, on my day off, as I headed to the supermarket, I stopped by the park. "Hey, Moon, will you play with me today?" Jake asked excitedly. Seeing him melts my heart. "Of course, buddy," I replied. Emily, looking somewhat apologetic, said, "Are you sure it's all right? I always feel bad since it's your day off. If you ever have plans or just want to relax, please let us know. I often wonder how they would react if I told them they remind me of my late wife and child. It's been 2 years of despair, but since meeting Emily, I've been able to lead a more normal life. Seeing Emily and Jake has helped me sleep better and drink less. I used to drink to numb the pain, but now their presence soothes my soul and eases my loneliness. Though it's a good thing, I can't help but feel guilty, as if I'm betraying the memories of my late wife and our unborn child. I fear I might forget the pain of losing them. At times I consider not meeting Emily and Jake anymore, but I always end up going to the park. I can't resist seeing their smiles and laughter. I can't resist seeing the smiles and laughter of Emily and Jake. Perhaps I'm a terrible husband and father with these thoughts in mind. One day, Jake fell sick with a fever. I received a sudden call in the middle of the night. Jake has a fever. It's almost 104 degrees. He's not responding much, and he's not drinking much water. I've never seen him like this. What should I do? Emily sounded really distressed. Though we had exchanged contact information in the past, our interactions were usually limited to our weekend meetings at the park. This was the first time she called me. I'm glad we exchanged numbers just in case. "Emily, it's going to be okay. I'll come right over and we'll head to the hospital in my car. Please text me your address and get ready to go." "Okay." When we talked, I knew our homes were in the same neighborhood, but I didn't know the exact address. I was worried if Emily, who seemed flustered, would give me the proper address, but she sent it without hesitation. I rushed to Emily's house by car and immediately drove to the emergency night clinic. The clinic that was open overnight was the same one where my wife and baby had passed away. Pulling into the clinic parking lot, Memories of that tragic day came flooding back, and my heart ached. Desperately pushing those emotions down, I got Jake checked out. They conducted various tests, but fortunately, it wasn't a serious illness. Still, he had to get an injection, and during that time, Emily and I waited in the empty lobby. I'm sorry. Thinking about it now, I should have just called a cab. I panicked and called you, Moon, without thinking, Emily said. Any parent dealing with their child's first high fever would probably panic. It's okay. A single parent, no car, and a child with a high fever is enough to make anyone panic. I'm glad I was able to get there. Emily, who was looking pale earlier, seemed to be regaining her color, which was a relief. I wondered if I'd be rushing to the hospital like this if my child was still alive. As I thought about that, I recalled the conversation between the doctor and Emily. Emily, it is Jake's birthday on April 20th. Caught off guard by my question, Emily looked surprised. Yes, it is. Why do you ask? I struggled to find the words. To me, April 20th is a special day. My child was still in my wife's womb when they both were tragically taken from me in an accident. The due date was April 20th. Even if the baby might not have been born on that exact day, I've always thought of April 20th as his birthday, so it just hit me that it's the same. I had vaguely mentioned losing my wife and child, but never spoke of the accident or that our baby hadn't been born yet. That must have been so hard for you, she replied. As a mother herself, maybe she understood how I felt. Emily looked deeply saddened. Actually, my late wife looked a lot like you and Jake. I felt nostalgic every time I saw you too. I'm sorry. This must be awkward for you to hear. It surprised me to share such a personal story. I hadn't spoken about this to anyone in the 2 years since their passing. Even with my late wife's parents, I had never shared memories. It seems I haven't fully come to terms with the loss. Maybe Emily has unknowingly become someone special to me. That's probably why I inadvertently showed her this vulnerable side of me. I feel comfortable around her, and that scares me. I want to hold on to the pain and loss of my wife and child. I can't be the only one to find happiness and move on. While lost in thought, Emily looked deeply into my eyes. Can I know your wife's name? Her name was Jennifer. She was so kind and attentive to even the smallest changes in others. I had hoped our unborn child would be like her. Images of my late wife flashed in my mind. Quickly, I took out some money from my wallet and placed it on the lobby couch. Please take a cab home with this. I need to go now. Sorry, I don't want our time together with you and Jake to be my place of comfort. I want to live quietly, always cherishing the memory of my wife and child. Without waiting for her reply, I turned away and started walking. I thought I should distance myself from Emily and Jake, but suddenly she embraced me from behind. Wait, I have something I need to discuss with you, but first, was your wife's name Jennifer Kirtley? I paused at the familiar maiden name of my long-lost wife and turned around to the woman who had just embraced me. Emily, did I ever mention my wife's maiden name to you? I was pretty sure I had only told you the first name earlier. Then Emily took a deep breath and gestured for me to sit down. I complied and sat next to her. I knew Jennifer. Jennifer and I were sisters. What? I'm sorry. I don't understand what you're saying. To my astonishment, Emily began to explain a shocking truth. Emily and my late wife were sisters. When Emily was still a baby, their parents divorced. The father took Jennifer, and the mother took Emily. They had parted on bad terms and hadn't been in contact since the split. Considering Jennifer was just around 2 years old when Emily was a baby, it made sense that she wouldn't remember. Emily's mother lived a poor life because she often played around with men. A few years after the divorce, my parents met by chance once, and my dad said he never told Jennifer about the divorce. She believed that the woman my dad dated after the divorce was her real mother, so he had no intention of letting her know about my mom and me. Jennifer's parents are still alive, but I never heard such a story from Jennifer or my in-laws. My in-laws are relatively well off, and the family got along really well. The fact that Jennifer was not related to her mother-in-law by blood was something she intended to take to her grave. My voice trembled as I processed the shocking revelation. Emily, did you know that Jennifer's husband is me? No, I thought I was an only child. I was told my dad passed away. About 6 months ago, my mom passed away from an illness. Before she died, she told me about my father and sister. Just before Emily's mom passed away, Emily had divorced Jake's dad. The reason was Jake's dad's violence. I could have endured it if it was just me, but when he started hitting Jake, I realized I couldn't go on like this. With no mother and now no husband, I felt lonely and insecure, wondering if I could raise Jake on my own. So I thought of coming to this place where my dad and sister had lived. Even without meeting them, just knowing that her father and sister lived in this place, perhaps in a town like Nebraska, might have provided some solace to Emily. Out of curiosity, I confirmed the name of Emily's father, and sure enough, it matched my father-in-law's name. Indeed, Emily and my late wife Jennifer were sisters. It kind of makes sense now that you and Jake look like Jennifer. Jake's birthday and the expected birth date of the baby Jennifer was carrying were the same. I know it's a coincidence, but I feel a connection, I said, recalling Jennifer's smiling face. Yes, but Jennifer grew up in a happy family and married you, while I lived a hard life being oppressed by my husband. Now, even my sister isn't in this world anymore. Maybe I'm destined to be alone. I reached out to embrace Emily, but withdrew my hand. I told myself that I shouldn't be happy with someone else so that I wouldn't forget my wife and child. The two of us sat in silence until Emily finally spoke up. I've fallen for you, Moon, but when I think about how Jennifer, a sister I never met, might feel, I get scared. Maybe we shouldn't see each other anymore. I wanted to nod in agreement, but found myself frozen. Just then, Jake, who had finished his injection, returned with a nurse. He looked much better than before, still a bit wobbly but able to walk on his own. A sigh of relief escaped my lips. Jake, let's go home. I'll drive. You rest up, all right? As I spoke, Jake nodded but then said something puzzling. You know, I had a fever and it was really high, but then a woman holding a baby stroked my head. She was like a mom, a very kind person. Both I and Emily were taken aback upon hearing this and exchanged glances. This was because we were just talking about a woman who looked a lot like Emily. You know, that lady wanted to speak with Mom and Moon. She said, I wish you happiness. I told her I didn't understand, but she just smiled. I'm so confused. It became clear that my wife had come to visit Jake. That I wish you happiness must have been about me and Emily. Tears well up in my eyes as I took Emily's hand. Should we talk about our future once more? Let's find a path that will make both of us and Jake happy. Yes. I picked up Jake and left the hospital with Emily. I think my wife gave the hesitant Emily and me a little push from behind. After that, Emily and I dated and registered our marriage. When Jake started elementary school, Emily was also able to meet and talk with my in-laws. My father-in-law was quite fond of Emily, and he was thrilled when they met. Emily is currently pregnant, but the other day Jake mentioned something curious. The baby inside Mom's belly feels like the lady who stroked my head at the hospital. Emily and I looked at each other and chuckled. I believe that the new life inside Emily is being watched over by our departed Jennifer and her child, until I heard Jennifer's words at the hospital. Remembering her and our child brought unbearable pain, but not anymore. It feels as though Jennifer and our child aren't really gone. I believe they're always watching over us. That is why we who are alive want to laugh a lot.